All right, let's dive in. We're going to look at a Quranic story that, well, most people think they have it figured out. But what if I told you the entire meaning, the whole point of it, could flip because of one single, tiny, misunderstood word?
So here's the part of the story that just doesn't sit right. You have a prophet, right? And he offers his own daughters to this angry, violent mob. It's a moment that's baffled people for centuries. It just feels wrong. And the source we're looking at today says, yeah, it feels wrong because we're not actually understanding what's going on.
Okay, so let's start with the version most of us have heard. The story of Lut, or Lot, is traditionally seen as a clear condemnation of homosexuality. The idea is that the men of his city, Sodom, were punished and the city destroyed by God specifically for this reason.
And verses like this one are pointed to as Exhibit A. When you read it on the surface, it seems pretty straightforward, right? Indeed, you approach men with desire instead of women. It sounds like an open and shut case. But I want you to just hang on to that for a second. There's more to it.
And that brings us right back to that glaring problem. If the main crime really was men desiring men, why in the world would a prophet's solution be to offer up his daughters? It doesn't compute morally or logically. And it's that very inconsistency that forces us to dig deeper, to really look at the original language.
And this is where it gets fascinating, because this whole new way of understanding the story, it all comes down to something so small you could easily miss it: a single word. One particle in the original Arabic.
That word is bal, just 2 letters. But this little particle shows up at the most critical points in the story, and if you understand what bal actually does grammatically, well, it's like finding the key that unlocks the whole mystery. So, okay, what exactly is bal? Before we can see how it changes the story of Lut, we've got to do a quick dive into what this tiny but powerful word actually means in Quranic Arabic.
The technical term is a retractive particle. I know, that sounds super academic, but the idea is actually really simple. Its whole job is to say, nope, not that, to whatever was just said. It contradicts or corrects the statement right before it. It's like a linguistic U-turn. The important part isn't what's said before bal, it's what comes after.
And hey, this isn't some new radical idea. If you look at classical Arabic dictionaries, they all agree. Bal is a particle that contradicts or corrects that which went before. Its job is to cancel the first idea and replace it with the second.
Let's look at a really clear example from another part of the Quran. You have the statement, they say Allah has taken a son. Then you get bal, here translated as rather. It completely throws out that first idea and then states the truth. To him belongs whatever is in the heavens and the earth. See how it works? Statement, then bal says wrong, then the correction.
Here's another one, just to make sure it sticks. The text poses a question. Or do they say, in him is madness? Then comes bal. And what follows? On the contrary, he brought them the truth. So again, it's a firm no. The pattern is super consistent. Bal is there to shoot down a misconception.
Okay, so now that we have a good handle on what bal does, let's take that knowledge and go back to the story of Lut, because this is where it all starts to click. Remember that verse from before? Read this way, it's not a statement of fact, it's a rhetorical question. It's Lut asking them, wait, is this really about you desiring men instead of women? And then comes bad la'el, which basically means no, that's not it at all. The real issue is, on the contrary, you are a people behaving ignorantly. It's a total pivot away from desire and towards something else.
And this isn't a one-off thing. This pattern pops up again and again in the verses about Lut's people. A question is posed, is this about adultery? And the answer, after bal, is, on the contrary, you are a hostile, aggressive people. Another question, is this about homosexuality? The answer, on the contrary, you are a people who transgress limits. Every time, bal shifts the focus away from a sexual act and onto aggression, hostility, and breaking boundaries.
So if bal keeps telling us what the crime isn't, then what in the world is it? Well, according to this analysis, there's one verse that acts as the smoking gun. And what makes it so important is what's missing, the word bal. Take a look at this. Notice something? No bal. No correction, no on the contrary. Instead, the actions are connected by the word wa, which just means and. This isn't a rhetorical question being corrected, this is a straight-up list. This is Lut finally laying out, point by point, what they are actually doing wrong.
So let's break down this list. What's the sequence? First, they approach men.
who context suggests are travelers. Second, they obstruct the road, literally, highway robbery. And third, they commit in your meetings every evil. This isn't just 3 random bad things. The argument is that this describes a single, organized crime.
And that brings us to the core of this whole reinterpretation. The unprecedented crime that had never been seen before wasn't homosexuality. It was organized, xenophobic gang rape targeting outsiders. It was about power, humiliation, and violence against vulnerable travelers. A completely different picture from what we started with.
Okay, so if we take this new understanding, the whole narrative just shifts. All those pieces that didn't quite make sense before, suddenly they start to fall into place.
And that, of course, brings us back to the biggest puzzle piece of all, Lut offering his daughters. How does this new framework finally make sense of that?
Well, first, let's just see how shaky the literal marriage offer idea is. The Quran itself has rules against marrying idolaters or fornicators. Plus, the text says the mob already had wives. And maybe most tellingly, the mob themselves say they have no rightful claim to his daughters. The whole thing just logically falls apart under scrutiny.
So here's the alternative explanation. It wasn't a genuine offer. It was a desperate bluff. Think about it. The mob's crime was targeted specifically at foreigners, at outsiders. So when Lut refers to his guests as my daughters, he's not offering them for marriage. He's making a legal or social claim. These people are under my protection. They are as my family. They are locals now. He was trying to use their own twisted xenophobic rules against them to save his guests.
So the picture that emerges is completely transformed. The great sin of Sodom and Gomorrah wasn't about love or desire between consenting adults. It was about violent inhospitality. It was a crime of power, of hatred, of preying on the vulnerable stranger.
And to think, this massive shift in understanding all comes down to a tiny 2-letter word. It's a pretty powerful reminder that maybe we don't always know these ancient stories as well as we think we do. And it leaves you wondering, what other huge secrets are hiding in plain sight, just waiting for us to look a little closer?